because we don't even necessarily know what this particular fight is about now.
That's a very stupid thing to say, because we can see from that clip, I think just based on just looking at it, it looks terrible. It looks deplorable. It isn't healthy.
It does look bad for him. Of course, I agree. Steven Crowder looks worse in this clip than his wife, Hillary Crowder. Hillary Crowder is the one that leaked the clip. Of course that's going to be the case. I would imagine that if Steven Crowder were to leak a clip of his wife, he'd probably make her look bad. He did it with the Daily Wire. He leaked shit of the Daily Wire, making them look bad. And when he did it with the Daily Wire, when he did that, I said probably shouldn't take everything he's saying at face value, because obviously Steven Crowder is going to selectively leak shit that makes him look good. And then when the Daily Wire came back and leaked shit, I'm like, okay, well, let's look at the totality of both sides.
Firstly, I had a bit of an issue with your assumption that my defense of the former Mrs. Crowder was because of my hating Steven Crowder just because I don't hold his politics. That implication was just absurd. Would you like to elaborate on that or to explain yourself?
Let me find the tweet so that I can see exactly what I said. Hold on. Why did this just log me out? Hold on. Wait, am I getting trolled right now? Or wait, is Twitter working for it? Wait, hold on, I'm sorry, 1 second. It's been logging me out all day? Oh, okay. Okay, I didn't know if my shit just got fucked. Okay, that was really weird. Fuck, Twitter is logging me out automatically. I don't know why. Okay, hold on, I can find these tweets.
Okay.
Okay, so my tweet was, I quote tweeted and I said, "It's insane that people can jump to so many conclusions knowing nothing." Then I quote you and I say, "This situation clearly stems ... end quote, and I say, "You have no idea what the situation stems from. Why on earth would you ever pretend to know? People are so quick to jump to conclusions about people they don't like." So my assumption here is that you don't like Steven Crowder. Yeah, I guess is that an incorrect assumption?
At that time, no. I mean, I didn't even know who he was, aside from just his face. Like, he's just a meme everywhere. I didn't know his name, even. So, no, I mean, I just feel that you were just so quick to jump on turning a clip, about a very personal thing, which sort of common sense should tell you is an abusive situation in and of itself, irrespective of context, without making a whole political hoo-ha about it, assuming that it's just because of politics that people are standing beside this white woman and her white woman tears. I mean, it was just so...
I guess it's hard to divorce the politics from it, because this is, well, I mean, you say lacking in thought, but like this is arguably one of the largest like political stories that's happening right now in alternative media. So I guess it's kind of hard for me to divorce it from like the political context that it's occurring in. I think that's a pretty big part of this entire story. But I guess if you had no political opinion one way or on another, I guess that could be an unfair assumption to me. That's a guess that I'm making here, that people are quick to jump to conclusions about people that they don't like. I could be wrong in that guess, I guess.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you did, so...
Okay, well, I guess you have no political opinions about Steven Crowder, so that guess would be incorrect. And you're wrong for other reasons then, not just because of the political nature, I guess, of the conversation then, huh?
Okay, for what other reasons am I wrong about this clip?
Well, I think that you saying that the situation that they're in right now is clearly stemming from the fact that she's pregnant. I don't know if there's enough information here to say that that's clearly what this fight is about. I feel like the fight could be about a million other things. We just don't have any idea. We're not sure because we don't. All we're seeing is like this 3-minute cut of this particular disagreement they're having, or this fight that they're in.
By the situation, I did clarify this in another tweet. I did apologize because by situation I meant that sort of the fact that the situation is so deplorable is really stemming from the fact that she's pregnant and this man is incapable of showing any empathy or understanding for her situation. And that was what sort of this whole situation, at least online, of people being sort of outraged by what he was doing and his actions and his words stemmed from. That was what I meant by situation.
Sure, but we don't have any idea what he feels about her pregnancy or how much empathy he's shown, because we don't even necessarily know what this particular fight is about, no?
That's a very stupid thing to say, because we can see from that clip that he clearly has no regard for the fact that she is pregnant by expecting her to put on gloves, to give the dogs medication, to go out and get him his steaks and all his barbecue goods. I mean, that he doesn't want her to take the car, but then he does. I mean, it's just, there's no sort of thought in his brain that this woman could be going through something. There's no empathy or thinking about the other, which is sort of like essential for any relationship, for any sort of conflict resolution in this clip, which he is just not willing to give any leeway to her or any leeway to the situation or resolving it.
Okay, so I guess let's go down these one at a time. Is a pregnant woman capable of putting on gloves?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Is that rhetorical or?
No, I'm just figuring out which one of these is like the insanely unreasonable demand that is not taking into account her condition. So I'm trying to figure out which one it is, because you named off a few things. So we'll find out which one it is.
Okay.
So you said put on gloves, give dog medication, go out and get steaks and barbecue. So I'm trying to figure out, like, of all of these, like, what are all of the insanely unreasonable demands? So for the first one, is putting on gloves, is that like an impossible, is that something that a pregnant woman should never do or is not capable of doing?
A pregnant woman, generically, can do that. But this is Hillary Crowder. Very specific situation, very specific person, based on information online about her health, about her health conditions, about the state of her pregnancy, about it being high risk, about it being 8 months, her carrying twins.
Is
very
there
different?
Yeah, so okay, so you said a lot of things. So can you give me some information in there that might make it so she can't put on gloves? Or I'm trying to figure out, because you said a lot of things. Yeah, what is there, like something particular to like a medical condition that's preventing her from wearing gloves, or is there something that you've heard online that I'm not aware of that prevents her from putting on gloves, or what part of this?
Yeah, so in March of 2020, Crowder posted this whole long thing on his Instagram of a picture of his wife in hospital. This is just before she got pregnant. She was in hospital because she suffers from a syndrome called Guillain-Barré or GBS syndrome, which is basically an immune deficiency which results in your immune system attacking your nervous system. And this is very rare and it's very serious. For a lot of people, it's fatal. People are left with paralysis. It's very, very serious. And so she has this syndrome. So I think considering just that, and considering the fact that on top of that, the pregnancy was high risk because of being a high risk pregnancy.
Sure.
And she's carrying twins.
Okay. One thing at a time.
I think it's exceptional.
Sure. So do you think then that because of her GPS that she's just like not in a condition to like ever take care of the dog ever? Is that?
I'm not saying that she isn't in a condition to do so, but I'm saying that just looking at it from a fact of a relationship working, a fact of reaching.
You keep saying a relationship working. The relationship is not working. They're already on the verge of divorce, right? I think they go to file. I think Crowder hires his divorce lawyer. I think like a month after this video. So the relationship is obviously clearly already not working, right? And it's not from the sounds in the video. It sounds like they've like
just based
gone
on
to
your
therapy.
Argument, how do you know that? How do you have any information about that?
That the relationship is not working?
Any substantial information, because you keep talking about having all this information and waiting and seeing for more information to come out.
Wait. To be clear, I haven't talked about having all the information. I'm just going by what I see is like publicly available. So one thing is that
that's exactly what I'm going on as well.
Okay, then I don't know why you're saying I have all this information. That statement was not true. I haven't said that. What I'm pretty sure of is that about a month after this video, I believe, Steven Crowder hires his divorce attorney, and it sounds like from what they're talking about in the video, it sounds like they've already been to therapy, and then obviously from looking at the confrontation, it looks like their relationship is not in a healthy place because Steven is exhibiting abusive behavior. So that's why I assume that the relationship is probably already like deteriorated. I doubt this doesn't come off to me as a video where it's like this is the first fight they're ever having. This looks like a long chain of things, and I'm making those other three things, those assumptions based on the other three facts.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Okay, so then going back, was this lady's GBS so severe that she was unable to care for a dog at all?
I would say, given the state that she's in, I'd say that it's plausible to say that she was probably not in a state to do a lot of things that Crowder was expecting of her that he listed out in the clip.
Okay, I would agree with you. Is it also plausible that she could have been in a state where she was perfectly able to take care of the dog?
I don't think there's actually a point in believing it to be plausible.
Well, there's a huge point. That's the whole point of having limited information. The point of assessing things with limited information is we have to speak probabilistically, right? Even in our legal system, things are probabilistic, right? Is it probable cause? Is it a preponderance of evidence? Is it beyond a reasonable doubt, right? Very rarely can we ever say, unless we are directly witnessing, we can't say this is this or this is that. We have to say probably this is this, or with high likelihood this is this, or beyond a reasonable doubt this is this. So you said that she has GBS, which I believe they've announced before. It is an autoimmune disease that can progress to very severe stages. I agree with all of that. So then my question is has it progressed to the point, or is it a point right now where she's unable to like give medication to a dog? Now, you said that it's plausible that that could be the case. I agree with you. It is plausible it could be the case. But it could also be the case that that's not the case at all, right?
Yes, I think more likely, far more likely, the latter. And considering that also in the article, I believe the journalist said that Hillary didn't want to give the medicine to the dog because she was afraid of it being toxic because of toxic substances within this medication.
Sure, that's information. The article kind of says that afterwards, although that's a separate thing. I'm trying to just focus on the video because the article is a whole other boatload of issues that we can get to. But that is true. The statement was given in the article, or the thing was put in the article there. That is true. Mm-hmm. But it seems to me, just based on what I've seen, and again, I'm only going by plausibility, okay? It's plausible that she could have put on gloves, given the dog a medication. I haven't seen anything that was saying that, like, this is the medication, it's not recommended that pregnant women handle even with gloves, this is considered highly toxic or whatever. I haven't seen any information put out that says any of that. Now, if that information was put out that says any of that, then I'd be like, okay, well, she should never be handling this medication. She should never be doing anything like that ever, because it seems like it would be incredibly potentially damaging the pregnancy. This is a really bad thing. But she never brings that up in the video at all, and we don't know, like, the medication is being used. So I was like, oh, it could have been really bad, or it could have just been that was her part of her responsibility in the household was like giving the dog medication. Is that
okay,
like
I see where you're coming from.
Okay.
I see where you're coming from, but at the same time I don't. I see from like sort of a very rational and sort of like reasonable perspective of looking at both sides where you're coming from, and just sort of like the place of sort of this enlightenment reason that you seem to be aligning yourself to. But when it comes to sort of a relationship which is based and founded on a lot of emotion and emotionality, I think that it's just common sense in looking at this situation from the perspective of Crowder or from the perspective of just an outsider viewing it, that it isn't so much about the fact, it doesn't really even matter if the medicine was toxic or not. It's about just being a common sense, basic, empathetic husband to your wife who's clearly distressed and is trying to get out of a situation.
Okay, so common sense is where reason goes to die, okay? When you say common sense, it doesn't mean anything, right? Because obviously different people can look at a situation in different ways, especially when emotions are involved, especially when relationships are involved. Just invoking common sense over and over and over again doesn't get us any closer to having understanding of the situation, right? You can absolutely analyze situations, even that have a lot of emotions involved. That's why therapy exists. That's why couples counseling exists. That's why family courts exist. Like, even things with a lot of emotionality involved can be analyzed in a relatively dispassionate, like, analytical way, right? We can still take into account the emotions everybody has while doing that. When you say, for instance, that she's clearly distressed, I would agree. She does seem clearly distressed in the video. Steven Crowder seems distressed as well. But I don't know how that gets us. But and then also for the dog medicine thing, I think that the fact of the matter there, I think, is really important, because I think it would inform quite a bit how I view the behavior of Steven Crowder, right? If somebody said, for instance, like, hey, you need to go do your routine with the dog. If routine meant walk the dog around the block, or if routine meant go wrestle with the dog, I would view those two things way differently, right? Because it's a totally different thing. Same thing with, you need to put on gloves and give the dog medication. If the put on gloves is like, it's a medication that you put on gloves and you just rub something behind their neck, that's one thing. But if it's like a highly toxic, like this can cause a miscarriage, that could be a whole level of abuse just in that statement. He's like literally telling her to do things that he knows is bad for her pregnancy, in a way to like, fuck with her mind or something. That could be a thing. That's why I think that the particular in that is like a little bit important, because it can range all the way from, it's not a big deal, who cares, to this is actually like a really abusive, horrible thing to do. But we just don't have the information.
Particularity could be, well, you could use that argument for anything. I mean, what do we determine as particular? Like you say that the particularity of the medicine is important, whether it's toxic or not. Mm-hmm. What about the particularity of the dog breed? These are very aggressive dogs. There's 2 of them. They're huge. They're really big, generally very aggressive. So, I mean, irrespective of whether she's rubbing cream on them or taking them for a walk just down the road, or is like giving them some toxic medication, makes no difference. The dog breed is still big, it's still aggressive, it's still, that's a particularity to consider as well. I think you can find these particularities in so many different things in this clip that it's basically like, which one are you going to prioritize? And I think the best one to prioritize without it getting so petty and sort of just detached from just reality, and I will say it again, common sense, is to look at sort of these things that we can agree on.
Sure. So when you say common sense, what you're saying is, I really don't want to think about the other things. I just want to look at the thing that's the most important thing to me, right? Like arguably in a relationship, I would say that saying common sense, that's abusive. That behavior, that idea that like, well, my issue that I care about, that's the only one that we should care about. And looking at any of the other peculiarities, that's actually irrelevant. That statement in and of itself is meaningless. Well, hold on, because there's a lot of, and also just because you say that like, well, the dog medication could be one thing, it could also be like a killer robo dog. That's also like sure, it could be, but I mean, these are things we can consider as well. I've seen pictures of like both of their babies, or I think one of their babies or 2 of their babies with like 2 dogs like literally laying next to them, and I see pictures of the dog. They seem mild-mannered. They don't seem very aggressive. I mean, maybe they are, but again, if that's the case, I haven't seen any evidence of that. I've seen evidence to the contrary, and she never brings that up in the video. Like, oh, the dog is scary. Oh, the dog's gonna hurt me. She never says anything like that, and I've never seen any evidence whatsoever of those dogs being aggressive ever. And I've seen like, yeah, the dogs have been to the studio. They seem to like chill the whole time. Even in this thing where both people are fighting and animals are very in tune to like people's emotions and stuff, the dog seems relatively chill. I think he's just walking around a little bit. He's not like attacking anybody or barking or anything. So yeah, I don't think we can hide behind the like, well, there's a lot of peculiarities to consider, so now I don't want to consider any peculiarity. I don't think that's a fair statement to make. There are a lot of things to consider, and I think they ought to be considered. That's what makes relationships, especially fighting in relationships, so complicated. And it's not easy to diagnose an entire relationship fight as like one problem that you can easily say everybody was on the right or everybody was on the wrong here. Generally speaking, sometimes you can, but
I think in this clip it's quite clear that there is somebody who's definitely in the wrong, because there is just an inability on his side to try to resolve the situation or to try and avoid it, which she's trying to do, and he just refuses to. He even says, I think he says at one point, we're at an impasse. Good. I mean, is that really the idea of a relationship being good, or at least in that context of this clip? Is that an example of something healthy, or something that is really considering your partner who is clearly not doing well?
Yeah, I don't know when you argue this, I don't know what you're arguing against. The relationship is clearly at an unhealthy point. He's clearly exhibiting signs of abusive behavior. The relationship is not in a good state at this point. I'm not going to ever disagree with that. So I don't know. However, I think she was the one that said we're at an impasse, right?
Yes, and then he responded by saying rhetorically, we're at an impasse, good.
Sure. So, but like now, whether to say like who the impasse is caused by, or who's more at fault for the particular impasse, in this particular clip that the wife chose to leak, now it looks like Crowder is the one in the wrong, I think. but we really don't really have like much context in the relationship to see who's like fucking up the most, you know? Like, for instance, what if it was the case that her only two responsibilities in the household were giving medication to the dog and like walking the dog? If those were the only two responsibilities that she had, and if Stephen was taking care of literally everything else in the household and she was unable to meet those two responsibilities, do you think it would be like, do you think you would view him being really upset a little bit differently than if he was just like saddling her with 50, 60, 70 responsibilities that she couldn't reasonably keep up with?
No, I can't say I would, because she's pregnant. It's pretty exceptional.
Okay, so
I don't
then
care
let's
if
go
she's
back.
as irrational as anything.
Yeah, okay, so
Feel
then
that
let's go
she's
back.
the priority.
Yep, so then let's go
above
back.
us.
We're going to go back and revisit the earlier part of the conversation. So I'm trying to figure out what you think pregnant women can do. So do you think that a pregnant woman could put on gloves to give a dog medication?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think that a pregnant woman could walk a dog that's like well behaved, or do you think that's unreasonable?
Yes, she wants to.
Okay, so I don't understand what your defense of potentially negative behavior by her of just saying, well, she's pregnant. How is that?
Because she's in an exceptional situation. I think that it's so important to actually consider this and to just consider being just empathetic toward her situation. It's so exceptional. I think there's just this like detachment from understanding the particularities of pregnancy for every woman. Yes, there's some women who are going to be running marathons until they like literally burst. There's some women who are not going to be doing well at all. And I think to understand and empathize with that, even when it may be incredibly annoying, where it may be considered irrational or unreasonable in sort of just everyday life when your wife is not pregnant, I think it's really important to just consider that there is a human being carrying a life within her and is in a very vulnerable situation, and just to have empathy for that basic fact of the matter.
Sure, we can be empathetic for her being pregnant. It doesn't sound like, though, that that has anything to do with this fight. I didn't hear that come out in this fight. What it sounded to me in this fight was it sounded like two people were having a disagreement over responsibilities in the household. Now, if in this fight she would have been saying things like, I can't do this, my feet are sore, my ankles, like nothing fits in my shoes anymore, like I feel like I'm just, today I feel sick, blah, blah, blah. If I was hearing stuff like that, I might feel a little bit of me like, okay, it sounds like she's having like a bad day, a rough day with her pregnancy, and she is very close to delivering. She does have twins. There's a lot to be empathetic there for, but this sounds like an extension of, or a continuation of a long series of fights over responsibilities and stuff. And also, you say consider being empathetic towards her situation. I can be empathetic towards her situation. I can be empathetic towards Steven's potential situation as well, but I don't really know how much empathy I should extend towards either party because I don't know what they've been fighting about. It could be that he's been fighting with her about giving the medication to the dog for a year. Maybe this has been an ongoing fight and has nothing to do with the pregnancy. Or it could be that she said that I don't like giving medication to the dog because he tugs me around and he pulls around and he jumps too much and it makes me really uncomfortable when I'm pregnant, in which case he'd be like a huge asshole. But I don't know that. I don't have any of that context. I'm not sure. But like either of those backstories would dramatically change the way that I view this right here, right? If it was the case that one of her only responsibilities was just giving the dog medication, she can and if it's a mild-mannered dog, she can do that while she's pregnant. That's probably not a big deal. That's not a huge issue, right? There might be some days where she can't, in which case I would hope she would verbalize it. And I would hope that Steven would step up and do it for her. But it could also be the case that that Steven Crowder is being a huge asshole here, and that he's just like saddling her with a bunch of random things to do because he's mad and he's being lazy or whatever. That could be the case too, but I don't know. I don't have like the backstory to what's going on for this fight. And we do agree that this sounds like a continuation of fights, right? Do we agree with that? That it sounds like they've had multiple fights, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so it's hard to say. We don't really know like what. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that irrespective of what you're saying about sort of we don't know where it stems from, etc., I think that's irrelevant to the fact that just in this clip as a standalone, he is being an asshole. I think, can we agree on that? Because he is being an asshole. The things that he's saying to her relative to the things that she's saying to him, and trying to be sort of conflict avoidant, and he's just being hostile and very hostile and in a detached way.
No,
it's quite,
I think that you can be.
Say so. Okay.
Well, we can go through statements he makes if you want, but I don't think it's fair to say that being more aggressive necessarily makes you the asshole. I think it would depend a lot on the dynamics of the relationship. So, for instance, if you were to watch me and Melina fight, I'm a very conflict avoidant person, and I withdraw when I'm upset. So all of our fights are probably going to be her shouting at me or her being upset at me. Now, if you were to look at that, you might say, well, don't you agree that she's being aggressive and she's being an asshole? You could say, yeah, she is, but that's usually because like I'm like emotionally withdrawn, or I'm shutting down, or I'm just trying to like not talk to her, right? So the conflict avoidant versus the like pursuer dynamic, it's hard to just look at one and say like, oh, that person is in the wrong and that person is in the right, because it's hard to say. I don't know what their fights normally look like, right?
Okay,
like in this, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go.
No,
Okay,
go
so
ahead.
I think there's an important distinction that between you and Melina and Stephen and Hillary is that I assume that you and Melina see each other as equals, and that generally when you fight, there is the objective, at least at the end after like somebody's cooled off or you've gone your separate ways, to come together and to find a solution or to apologize, and that your relationship can continue. With Crowder, he's not just being aggressive, he's being hostile. In the things that he's saying, basically he wants there to be an impasse. He's saying my way or no way. He has no empathy or showing no emotional consideration for Hillary. He isn't looking for anything except for what he wants and his needs to be met. And there's no other conception of anything else. Where she's trying to be conflict avoidant, she's trying to get away from the situation. That does not make for, that's not somebody who's like volatile and is then going to sort of go away, cool off, or wants sort of like space and then to actually find a resolution to something. It's very different. It's quite clear from what he's saying, from how he's treating her, from his approach to her, from him not wanting her to leave the house at all, for him wanting to keep the car. It's quite clear that this is not somebody who's just being volatile or aggressive. He's being hostile.
Okay, so again, when you say he just wants his needs to be met, maybe he meets her needs and she doesn't meet any of his. Is that possible? Again, so I don't.
Because I feel that she's really met a fundamental need of his as like this Christian male, which is to reproduce like his DNA. So
do you think that's the only need that he's looking for? Is just for somebody to get pregnant?
I think it's paramount, and I think that when your wife, they've been married for 9 years as well. Surely she's been doing something right in those 9 years. Well,
and him as well, no?
Yes.
Okay, so that's not relevant. It looks like there's been a breakdown in the relationship. So you're saying that he's the one that it's so funny because these are so many of my fights with Melina, except I'm on the other end of this, right? Melina, when she talks to me, it's usually about me meeting her needs because I have very few, right? And again, if you were to listen to our fights, she might come off as the abusive one if this is what you're qualifying it for, where she's like, oh, you're not doing this, or I need you to meet my need here, or whatever, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that she's being abusive. It could just mean that I'm failing to meet her needs, right? And she's meeting all of mine. And the same thing with Stephen and Hillary Crowder. It could be that Stephen Crowder is putting in work to meet her needs. I don't know. I haven't seen the relationship on camera, and she's not putting in work to meet his. That's what he seems to be saying. Now he says it in a pretty aggressive and pretty shitty way, but that could be the case. Maybe she's not meeting any of his needs off of this video, right? Isn't that possible? Is it plausible?
In this situation, she's a conservative housewife who Stephen Crowder's wrote in opinion pieces that they have a great sex life. I think she's meeting a lot of his needs. I don't.
Hold on.
I don't have. Generically, I have sympathy for that position, but when it comes to this and just what I've read and seen based on his posting on his Instagram and all of that, I feel like she was meeting his needs.
Okay, so because he posted positive stories on Instagram, you know that like. I hate to. I keep trying to bring up personal examples because I obviously can't use credit, but like me and Melina will say things publicly. It's like, oh yeah, we love each other even if we're having a fight. Like we're not like telling everybody like, oh, today me and Melina fought over this particular thing, right? It's possible that they're having big fights or breakdowns in the background, but like obviously for a lot of reasons, you've got pressure to put a public-facing image on, right?
Yeah, I know, but this is all the information that we have and are going to have. None of us are ever going to be explicitly privy to their relationship. No matter how long you wait for information to arise and come out and be exposed, it's not going to happen.
Then maybe that's a good reason to not have a strong opinion about it, right?
I mean, why can we have strong opinions about like murder trials, but we can't then have strong opinions about this?
Because
especially a public figure who is clearly shows a lot of tendencies of what psychologists would call narcissism or self-absorption. I think it's very viable. It's incredibly viable to actually have this stance about the situation.
In a murder trial, do you think it would be fair to have a strong opinion of the murder trial if you'd only watched the prosecution or if you only watched the defense?
No.
Okay, well, right now we only have one side of this divorce. Why would we assume that that's enough for us to make a judgment about the fight that we see on camera?
Because I'm not making a judgment about the divorce and like the proceedings.
Well, no, hold on.
This
is all. That's all part of this, right? You're seeing something that the wife has selectively shown the public, right? Potentially as part of this divorce case that's going to go through, right? So if you've only seen,
who exposed it? Was it her family?
It was almost for sure her and her family.
Okay.
And they leaked it to a celebrity gossip blogger.
Okay. Yeah.
So if we're seeing a clip that she leaked, a video that she selected for, and we're seeing her specific viewing of the video, why would I draw a big assumption about the health of their relationship on both sides? There are some assumptions I could draw. It's clearly unhealthy. Steven Crowder clearly says some things that are abusive.
You're drawing assumptions.
No. Just from what I'm seeing in the video, right? Saying things like, I don't love you. Like, that's probably something you should never say, even if you're fighting. That's a pretty shitty thing to say. Talking in a condescending manner, you need discipline, you need that. Probably think, even in a conservative relationship, you should never really say that, right? So I can see some things that he's doing that are pretty clearly abusive. It's not good. She seems to be, obviously, this is a continuation of a lot of fights. I can't see anything she's clearly doing wrong. She could be doing some wrong things, it's hard to say. But, like, this is a video that she's chosen to show us to represent her side of the story. So I don't know why I would draw a big conclusion against Steven Crowder when I'm seeing what his ex-wife is showing me about their relationship.
He's a public figure who's going to expose his side of the story. She's not. So why shouldn't she release it? Why shouldn't she be allowed to release this? I mean, I think that it's fair enough if she wants to, if this is what she wants to do, then by all means.
If she wants to release it, I think that's fine. It's her right to. I mean, I wouldn't expect her to release stuff that shows her in a bad light.
Because that's how we sort of get both sides, I feel.
But you're not
to both sides. We don't have everything about her, obviously. But far more about Crowder and his sort of antics with regards to his public image, etc. But I think...
Yeah, I never said that she couldn't. If she wants to release all she can, she would. And I would expect what she releases. I would expect it to show her in the best light. I hope she's being honest, but I would expect her to show her in the best light. But I wouldn't draw huge conclusions about it the same way I wouldn't draw huge conclusions about when Crowder came out and Crowder was saying, like, well, she decided to divorce and in Texas only one side can do it. I'm like, okay, well, he's obviously making her sound like she's doing some evil take the kid shit, but I'm not going to believe only Steven Crowder's side of the statement there. It sounds like he's got problems of his own, right? So you wait until everything comes out and then you make a decision on things based on the totality of what we see, I guess, rather than seeing one clip from one side and making a bunch of assumptions about both people.
Okay, but that's also very vague by saying we just need to wait for everything to come out, because when will everything come out? Firstly, it likely nothing else is going to come out because she wants this to be private. They've wanted this to be private. It has been private for like over a year at this point. And also, I feel that, what is everything coming out? I mean, if you're going to be skeptical of information that comes out from journalists, from people on Twitter, from Steven Crowder, then who are you going to trust? When is the end point of sort of everything coming out?
Sure. Okay. So in terms of public stuff, if the divorce trial happens, are divorce proceedings not public? I know it's a legal affair.
I'm not sure how it works in the US, I'm afraid.
Okay, so there would be the divorce proceedings. I don't know how much that would be public or private. There is whatever both sides decided to leak or decided to expose about it. That's that you can go off of. And then when you say you're being skeptical of information that comes out, of course I'm skeptical of information that comes out. That's not saying I would say that it's false or it's like completely fabricated. I think the video with Steven Crowder is real. I don't think that it's like a deep fake, but like obviously I would want to get his side of things too. And then you keep saying, what if stuff never comes out? What if everything isn't like ultimately released? Well, then I just wouldn't have a strong opinion on it. You don't have to have a strong opinion on every single thing that happens. There's a lot of things that I'll probably never have a super strong opinion on because you're just not going to get all the information about it. But I don't know why there's not like a need to stake a strong opinion out on something, especially if there's limited information available.
I agree with you on that, but I think it's perfectly valid and people shouldn't be ridiculed for having a very strong opinion about a clip that is being presented, without it being considered in relation to this idea of these hypotheticals, or what if, or looking at both sides of like this relationship, when we're just looking at this clip and the behavior in this clip and whether it's healthy or not, whether he's being abusive or not. And I think it's perfectly valid and viable to see him as being abusive and unhealthy in this clip.
The issue that I have is that, broadly speaking, over the past 10 years on social media, we tend to have an incredibly binary, an incredibly simplistic view of almost every single type of human interaction that exists. Whether it's a white girl in a car rapping along to the N-word, or whether it's a guy who wears dreadlocks, or whether it's two people having a disagreement in public, it seems like we're keen to strip out every single potential part of a relationship or interaction or context of the thing and just like bring the hammer down on some insane shit. And human relationships are oftentimes messy, oftentimes complicated, oftentimes involve fights, oftentimes even involve partners sometimes saying stupid things to each other that they shouldn't say, right? This has happened in a lot of relationships, probably in some that have lasted a really long time and are otherwise perfectly healthy. So we just have come off a couple years ago that Amber Heard Johnny Depp stuff, where the whole world was rocked and they realized like, okay, well, we thought it was this thing and now it's this thing, and maybe it's actually like really messy on both sides, because it was. Anybody that says that Amber Heard was a crazy psycho was completely wrong and everything that's not true. Johnny Depp was fucking insane as well. Anybody that came away from that thing and either side came out clearly exonerated is wild. However, for the people that clearly sided with Amber Heard before the information came out, they were also wrong to do so. So I see another situation that comes out where people are very quick to look at like one or two things, and it's like, you're trying to make the woman give the dog medicine. And it's like, that might have been like their delineation of household chores. Who knows? When people are so keen to enter these strong opinions on stuff they don't really have very much information about, I think it plays into this larger culture of like this binary analysis of really complicated, messy things. And there just doesn't need to be. There's like no pressure at all. There's like, nobody is like in a life or death situation like, oh my God, like I need the opinion about Steven Crowder and whether or not he's an abuser piece of shit right now, otherwise I'm going to die. Like, nobody's thinking that right now. There's just no reason to have a hugely strong opinion about it. That's
me, for instance, having a strong opinion on this clip. I wouldn't have a completely different opinion if another clip came out of her doing the exact same thing to Stephen, saying the exact same things to him. I'd have a very nuanced opinion about that as well, about that potentially being, abusive on her part, if that were to come to pass. But at the moment, we only have this one clip.
Sure.
And I think it's perfectly okay to say these things about that.
Well, sure. Let me spin a very small story, okay? Let's say that we can tell they've probably gone to therapy. It seems like it. That's an assumption I'm making on the clip. They're talking like they've been in therapy together, okay? So let's say that they've gone to therapy, and let's say one of the big complaints they have is Steven Crowder's wife feels like Steven Crowder is not showing her enough love, maybe words of affirmation or something. And Steven Crowder feels like his wife doesn't contribute enough to the household. And one of the things that they work out in therapy is, okay, Steven, you need to do this. Hillary, you need to do that. What if it was the case that over the next like 3, 4, 5 months, Steven Crowder was making a big effort to do it, and she was completely lax in all of her household responsibilities? Maybe she only had a few. Maybe the dog is one of her only things she's supposed to do. Maybe Steven comes home from recording a few shows. He's sitting on his balcony. He's smoking a cigar. He's chilling, and like the dog shit inside and hasn't had his medication yet. And then she comes out and she says, well, I want to leave. I'm going to go somewhere. And he's thinking like, F me, like you can't even, you didn't give the medication to the dog. Shit is right now. Like I just got home working. I'm like finally like out here chilling, and now you want to leave and I've got to do all this shit or whatever, right? If that was the backstory to this particular video clip, that wouldn't change at all how you view the clip. You'd view it exactly the same as with all the negative assumptions you have built in right now.
Yes, because of the fact of her being pregnant.
I thought we already established that just because she was pregnant, it doesn't necessarily keep her from doing any of these things.
No, I said generically. I said that in her particular situation, with the information that we have about her health, about the state that she's in with regards to how long she's been pregnant, with it being high risk, I do think that it's an exceptional situation. So yeah, I would not have sympathy for him.
Okay, so in this case, then, your real position is that pregnant women can do no wrong, and anytime you mean to a pregnant woman, it's automatically abuse. Because that's what you're retreating. You're saying that situation. This is a particular person. No. The particular
pregnant
situation.
Woman. I'm not saying that this is generically the case for all women. You're inferring that I'm saying that, because I said this, that therefore that means that I'm actually saying this, which I'm not saying.
Well, this is what you're saying, because I asked you for all of that lead up, and you were saying, well, no, because she's pregnant. Or no, because she's pregnant with twins.
Hillary Crowder, is pregnant. Hillary Carter, with her particular medical history, with her particular situation, with this particular individual. Yes.
Okay, so then would you say that like she can't be expected to like do any chores around the house, or is like, should it, like if there was like a clip and it was just Stephen Crowder saying like, oh God, like could you, like you didn't feed the dog, would you be like
chores around the house? I mean, in the clip she says that she'll go out and she'll get Stephen the stuff that he needs, that she'll go grocery shopping, which seems to be a thing that she's meant to do. It's one of her duties, but he doesn't want her to go because he knows that she's actually just going out because she wants space. But he says that you can't go grocery shopping if you're not going to do your other duties.
Well, but it sounds like he said he'd be okay with her like taking an Uber. It sounds like what he really wants is the car because he wants to be able to leave.
Yeah, he wants the car so he can leave. But also she said something, I think she said, I will ask somebody to pick me up. Who would you like me to ask? And he didn't respond to that. And he said, get an Uber. He did
respond to that. And he made it sound like...
he didn't respond to that. He said, get an Uber.
No, he did respond to that. And he made it sound like that was an issue that they'd fought about before. He did. When she said, who would you like me to ask? It sounds like, I'm making a lot of assumptions here, but it sounds like she's probably had friends pick her up before, and then they've talked about Stephen Crowder, and those friends don't like Stephen Crowder. Because when she said, who would you like me to ask? He said, is that a threat? And it makes it sound like they've had an issue with her getting people to come over before that don't like him. That's what it sounded like. But he did respond to it, and that's what it seemed like what was going on. But he also said you could just get an Uber and leave if she wanted to, but she didn't seem to want to get an Uber.
Okay, so she said, I'll ask somebody to pick me up. Who would you like me to ask? What is that a threat?
Sure, so her statement could have been passive aggressive.
So he hasn't responded by saying, no, you can't ask somebody or ask Candace. I mean, he didn't, I think that there's a difference between how he responds. He didn't respond directly to what she'd asked. She asked a question and he responded with a question.
Sure, because my guess is that he's interpreting it as passive aggressive, right?
Which it wasn't. She clarified and said that it wasn't, and he didn't answer. He said, get an Uber.
Sure.
That's indirectly answering her question.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. But
at all.
Sure, he's not looking for resolution. Both these people sound like fairly triggered, right? I don't think that anybody's looking for a resolution here, right?
I mean, she is by going.
She could have just gotten an Uber and left. She didn't want to do that.
Yeah, she wanted to go in the car.
Yeah,
just cool off by herself. She's not going to cool off in an Uber with a stranger.
I think she wanted space. She just wanted to be driven somewhere to get away from Steven. You can cool off once you get out of the Uber, right?
No, I think this is just the lacking in sort of like empathy, I think.
You're lacking in empathy for Stephen Crowder. You have zero empathy for him because you see a pregnant woman. I understand you keep saying lacking empathy. I have plenty of empathy for both sides. They're both sides are super, like she could be having a ton of problems right now. I totally agree with that. I'm not even conceding that. I admit that, of course. She's like fucking got twins, 8 months pregnant. Not to mention the stress of this crumbling relationship is probably a whole bunch of shit. Like, of course, all of that is definitely true, for sure. But then, and you're on the other end, there could be a lot of stress for Stephen Crowder too. I have no idea what it would be like to be facing a divorce when you have 8 figures worth of assets, when you're a public-facing conservative figure, when you might have at one point super loved your wife and you've got children and you don't want to lose them. Like, you could be facing a fuck ton of stress too. You have zero empathy for his side because you see a pregnant woman.
Now, I have zero empathy for his side based on what he said in this clip, based on the fact that he has no consideration or compassion for what she is going through right there and there. I don't care about like everything else around that, or the fluff or the hoo-ha. I care about the fact that she wants to get out and he's not letting her because she isn't performing her wifely duties. I don't have empathy for a man who has consulted a divorce attorney behind his wife's back, even though that she's trying to resolve things and find a resolution to their marriage, and that he's sitting there with his legs up, smoking a cigar, telling her that he's got things that he needs, grocery shopping, like steaks, wood pellets for his grill. And it's very difficult, just basically
it's difficult for you to empathize
for that in that situation, and I think that's perfectly valid.
Yeah, it is. Well, it's normal. I don't think it's valid. I think it's really sad that you have zero empathy for, I don't know if it's because he's a man or because it's Stephen Crowder or what, but like everything you're saying is so unbelievably loaded for no reason, like legs up smoking a cigar. Maybe he just flew back from filming like 20 shows over a week. You have no idea what he's doing. He could be a lazy piece of shit that smokes cigars on the couch like 4 or 5 times a day outside, or he could have literally just gotten back from like a fucking red-eye flight from LA, like, you know, having done a ton of work. You have no idea. You have no idea. Maybe he just literally finished mowing the yard and did all of his responsibilities. He came in and he saw that his wife hadn't done anything with the dog, even given the medication, and I wanted to sit back and smoke a cigar. You have no idea. But instead you just like hand wave, you're like, oh, legs up smoking a cigar like a loser. Like, you have no idea about that.
He was a loser.
You're making up.
I said it's hard. I said just given the information that we have, because we're not going to know what happened before then. Anything like this is purpose. This is like the only clip that's out there. Okay, I think just based on just looking at it, it looks terrible. It looks deplorable. It isn't healthy.
It does look bad for him. Of course, I agree. Steven Crowder looks worse on this clip than his wife Hillary Crowder. Hillary Crowder is the one that leaked the clip. Of course that's going to be the case. I would imagine that if Steven Crowder were to leak a clip of his wife, he'd probably make her look bad. He did it with the Daily Wire. He leaked shit of the Daily Wire, making them look bad. And when he did it with the Daily Wire, when he did that, I said probably shouldn't take everything he's saying at face value, because obviously Steven Crowder is going to selectively leak shit that makes him look good. And then when the Daily Wire came back and leaked shit, I'm like, okay, well, let's look at the totality of both sides.
It wouldn't opinion of this clip being bad and him being abusive in this clip. As I said, if another clip came out of Hillary being abusive, I would say that Hillary is being abusive and that's unacceptable. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, but it still makes us view the sides a bit differently. I think people view mutual abuse a lot different than one-sided abuse.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, definitely.
I think it also probably changes how we feel about the divorce. Even what you said too, consulting a divorce attorney behind his wife's back. Again, I don't even know if that's necessarily a wrong thing. We don't know if she's consulted a divorce attorney. We have no idea. We don't know if she's the one pushing for divorce. If she's the one pushing for divorce...
No, he did a month before, and then she found out, and that's when she filed for divorce.
Yeah, but we don't know if she was the one that wanted the divorce, right? We don't know that, do we? So if she's saying things like she wants a divorce, he was the one that got the divorce attorney first, but if she's saying things like she wants a divorce, I would expect a man that's worth over $10 million and that wants to maintain a relationship with his children to probably start talking to a divorce attorney. I think that's totally fair. Yeah.
If you and your wife, or your wife is trying to save the relationship, you think that's perfectly acceptable?
Yeah, 1,000,000%. Yeah. If I went, so I'm probably in 2 weeks, I'm going to LA and then I'm going to Nebraska and hang out with my son. If when I was there, if his mom started to say some stuff like, I don't really know if I like the fact that you like Abercrombie and Sam. I'm not sure how I feel about that. The second she says that, before I'm even on a plane back to Miami, I'm calling a fucking family attorney, 100%. Why would I risk the relationship with my child at the whims of my wife? Steven Crowder could feel the same way. He might think that, okay, well, she's talking divorce. I think they already have children, don't they?
They've got 2 twins.
Yeah. So they've got children already, and he's worth over 10. Yeah. Wait. So they just have the 2 that she's got right now?
Yes.
Okay. So if he's got these 2 children now, if he wants to have a relationship with these children, and if he's worth over $10 million, and she's starting to talk about divorce, that wouldn't surprise me. He's reaching out to an attorney. That's probably a responsible thing to do.
Okay. I think reasonably. I think when it comes to, as a woman, if I was in her situation, if I had said to my husband that I loved him, I'm committed to him, and I want this marriage to work, if I then found out that whilst I want this marriage to work, he's consulting a divorce attorney, that the trust is just gone.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That'd be pretty shitty.
You're not invested in actually trying to resolve anything or make this marriage work. So understandably, she'd file for divorce. If that's the case.
If that's the case, yeah, for sure, yeah. Now, keep in mind also, he has the right to not want to make it work and to want to break up with her. He can do that. Same thing with her. She has the right to not want to make it work and break up with him.
And why didn't he tell her? Why did he go behind her back to a divorce attorney?
I don't know what behind her back necessarily means. Like, if he's contacting a divorce attorney, should he tell her, like, hey, by the way, I've got a divorce attorney that I don't know 100% if that's, like I said, like, once divorce happens, I know this is hard for you because you want to be the emotionality or whatever, but once divorce happens, like, we're starting to put assets on paper and you're going to be involved in what is probably going to be the most important legal battle in your entire life. Nothing in your life is going to be as important as fighting over the assets you've accrued over that marriage and rights to see your children in the future. So I think he'd probably want to go through whatever. Maybe he talks to a divorce attorney. Maybe he feels like she's at fault. that it's her, that she's been doing a bunch of crazy shit. He talks to the divorce attorney. He's like, you need to make copies of her text. Maybe if he's like super forward about everything initially, maybe she starts deleting shit or hiding shit. I don't know, but that could be a thing. But I'm pretty sure that like most people that are getting into a divorce that are worth a lot of money and have children whose rights they want to protect to see are probably going to try to do everything they can to angle themselves in that way. That would be my guess. But also, it could be what you're saying, that he's like gaslighting the fuck out of her, saying like, you know, we are going to try to make this work. We're going to do everything we can. And behind the scenes, he's talking to a divorce attorney. He's like, we're going to cut this bitch out of everything. I'm going to fucking take my children. We're going to like trump up some bullshit charges. I'm going to get that could be the case too. But I haven't seen any information either way for that.
Okay. Yeah, I just feel that there's a disturbing lack of just the sort of emotional awareness that's just needed to make any relationship, whether it be a marriage or friendship, to work in sort of this this distrusting sort of disposition. I think it's not conducive to the kind of relationships that you need in order to work. And so I do understand her filing for divorce once she found out that he was doing what he was doing. And I think that sort of this lack of just, at least on your part, a sort of a lack of being able to put yourself into the shoes of the other is...
I can put my shoes in. If you want to ask me to explain something from somebody's perspective, feel free to do it. Because unlike you, who summarizes Steven's position as like, oh, just a guy who's kicking his legs up and smoking a cigar, like I could just as easily say, oh, well, here's a woman that's weaponizing, like words like, oh, well, I've got all these problems, but I'm not going to do anything, but I'm going to keep saying I love you, right? Which is what Steven Crowder was claiming in the video, that she's just saying I love you to shirk her responsibilities and to be manipulative, right? But I'm not claiming that of her, because I wouldn't claim that of her. I don't know that, right? I can be empathetic to both positions here. But it could be the case that both people are similarly being wronged and acting wrong. It could be the case that Steven Crowder is on his own being a huge piece of shit, and she's put in a ton of work to make the relationship work on top of the stress of managing pregnancy with twins, or it could be the case that she's like completely a piece of shit, or they're both a piece of shit. I don't know. So I don't have the information on the backstory. I can empathize with both sides. It's just weird to call for selective empathy, especially from a video that was just leaked by one side of the party.
Okay, I completely agree with you on all of that, but that doesn't mean that should be prioritized over looking at this clip and seeing this unedited clip, this likely unedited clip, as being an instance of a man being abusive to his wife.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that in this clip, Steven Crowder is probably being abusive to Hillary Crowder. There's like a high likelihood of that, yes.
That's literally all I'm saying.
That's not literally all you're saying. You're making a ton of assumptions about the backstory of the relationship and of what the totality has been that got them to this place.
Gaining more information through their social medias, through articles, through research is not the same as making assumptions.
Okay, but what their relationship was like leading up to this are all assumptions, I think. Like, we have no idea.
I don't think I've made any outlandish assumptions about that.
Well, you're making the assumption, for instance, that it's wholly unreasonable for him to expect her to give the dog medication. We have no idea, though, if that's a reasonable expectation.
Yes, not because of anything, not because of assumptions about the medicine. I didn't make any assumptions about whether the medicine was toxic or not. I said, I don't care about that. I said, I care about the fact in that moment, you can see that this is a heavily pregnant woman, and that therefore it's pretty unreasonable to ask her to do these things when she is the priority, just by fact of being pregnant, heavily pregnant, about to burst. I think there's far more important things, like the well-being of of the woman who is carrying your children.
Okay, we're going to back up to this one thing I asked. Well, again, I guess I'll ask again. Is it unreasonable for an 8-month pregnant woman to put on gloves and give a dog medication? I don't know why we keep backing up saying that expectation is wholly unreasonable.
Well, this particular woman, I think it's perfectly viable to say, yes, probably it is.
Okay. I don't think we have enough information.
And I'm not generalizing.
Sure, I understand we're not generalizing, but I don't know if we have enough information for her to say that she should have no responsibility over the dogs. I don't know if that is the case. I don't know what they've talked about. I don't know what they've worked out. I don't know if that's a reasonable thing to say here. It might be, but it's plausible that it's also not. It's plausible, for instance, that it might actually be that's her only job. Maybe her only responsibility around the entire house is just giving the dog the medication to walk the dog. Maybe that even comes with a recommendation from the doctor that it's good to like be active and move, and like if you've got like some docile dogs, you can like walk the dog around the neighborhood. It's a good way to be active as a pregnant woman without like doing any strenuous or physical activity. Maybe.
In the Texas summer. In the Texas summer.
Sure, maybe.
At 8 months pregnant.
Sure, maybe, yeah. A walk around the block? Yeah, pregnant people walk around. Pregnant people can do a lot of things in life. They're not like bedridden, even in the last month of pregnancy.
Nobody's saying that.
What?
Nobody's saying that.
You're saying that she's so pregnant and bursting, that was your word, bursting, that she can't give the dog medication. That's what it sounds like you're saying.
No, I'm saying that her feelings, that her well-being, even if it seems completely like illogical and irrational, is the priority. If a pregnant woman wants to eat steak with chocolate sauce, then by all means, yes, give that to her. She's the priority. She's freaking putting her life at risk carrying your child. It's just common sense.
I think ordinarily, I think I would agree with you that like the pregnant woman should get the priority in almost all cases, right? Like, assuming that both people in a relationship are being decent, right? Even at 6 months pregnant, even at 2 months pregnant, even right after she gets pregnant, that's probably true. Or in all cases of a relationship, because you're your wife. But this is an exceptional situation in that like both sides are clearly highly antagonistic towards each other because they're on the verge of a divorce. This relationship has been collapsing for a long time. So I guess the way that I would evaluate the behavior of both parties like is a little bit different. Like Steven Crowder should still ideally, even if he f***s the woman, it's his wife and those are his kids, hopefully. So like he should be obviously treating her nicer, but I don't know so far based on what I've seen in this video. I don't know if the expectations of her just giving the dog medication are unreasonable. It could be that she's just using like weaponized incompetence. Like, oh, I can't do that. I can't do anything, blah, 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 to f*** him. Maybe. I don't know. We just don't have the information.
Is she being antagonistic in this clip?
It's hard to say without more information. Saying things like "I love you" can be highly antagonistic, right? It could be a manipulative thing. They could be like weaponized incompetence. Like,
is she being antagonistic by wanting to get out of the situation? Is it antagonistic?
It could be, maybe.
I will ask someone to pick me up.
It could be.
To say I want to go.
I want somebody to pick me up. It could be, right? Say you've got a friend that Steven hates, Steven, and you always call this friend over and you know you're going to talk a bunch of shit and they're going to talk a bunch of shit and there's going to be like a confrontation or whatever, calling that person over. Maybe. That's what it sounds like when he says, because when she says, who do you want me to call? That sounds like a passive aggressive thing. Like she's like, if I call somebody, you're going to get mad. Well, who do you want me to call to come pick me up? And then he's like, well, is that a threat? Like she's called people to pick her up before that he doesn't like or that doesn't like him. That's what that sounds like, right? But again, I just don't know. I don't have all the information.
He's asking a question. Who would you like me to ask? And then he asks her to clarify whether it's a threat or not, and she says no. So where do we go from there? If there's just this like ambiance of just distrust and like, oh, there's always something insidious behind what somebody's saying, we're not going to get anywhere in relationships, not just in this relationship.
Yeah, welcome to a broken relationship. That's the point. Remember, these guys have been together for 8 years and they're on the verge of a divorce. The relationship is fucked.
Relationship, but if it's just everyone, if you're telling people, oh, like if somebody says, would you like, who would you like me to ask? That, oh yeah, there must be something like insidious behind there, or like, oh yeah, she's probably being like aggressive behind like the perfectly reasonable ask of somebody. I mean, for goodness sake, it's.
Yeah, that's what manipulation and fucked relationships can look like. That absolutely is. Yeah, it could be, of course.
I disagree on this particular
You can disagree, but you're wrong. You're just dead wrong, right? Manipulation and abuse in a relationship doesn't just look like somebody going like, F you, you're a horrible person. I hate you. I'm going to trap you. You're a piece of shit. That's not what all abuse and manipulation looks like. Abuse and manipulation could look like, well, I'm going to call a friend to come pick me up, knowing that I'm going to talk a ton of shit to that friend. Or it could look like.
Did she say it like that?
No, she didn't say it like. I'm just giving an example. It could be him saying, like, oh, well, you can't take the car. I might need to go to the gym later because he wants to keep her isolated and locked to the house, right? Abuse or manipulation manifests in a whole bunch of different ways. Very rarely is it a clear. Sometimes it is, but it's not always like a crystal clear statement of like, I'm going to abuse you.
I'm not saying that at all, but I'm saying that if somebody asks you a question and then you, as he did, he assumed that she was being threatening. He asked her if she was being threatening and she clarified and said, no, I'm not making a threat. I'm literally asking, who can I call? Who can I ask?
Okay.
To then like imply that that's manipulation.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that simple.
I don't know what to say. Like for me, I'm going to drop the common sense. Like, these interactions can absolutely happen if people are fighting, where people are just being like passive aggressive, right? Like somebody might say something like, okay, well, the night's ruined because we're fighting, and then the guy says some shit like, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna go out with some friends because I think I want to go have a beer. And he's just saying that because he wants to get away from her, or he's like being an asshole. And she's like, are you really going out with friends? Do you really want to get a beer? And he's like, yeah. But like that could be like dripping with like condescension. Like it could be, and her answers could be. But again, I don't know the history. For instance, if I found out
that boyfriend is allowed, he goes and he can go and he can let off. The difference.
And she could have Ubered.
Is that she can go. She's pregnant. She wants to get away. She wants
Ubering
to
is easier when you're pregnant than driving.
Do you know what she said? You're asking a pregnant woman to get into a car with a stranger when she's clearly distressed. She's upset. She wants time alone. Driving can be very therapeutic. She wants to just go to the store. She wants to just relax, just clear her head. It's absurd to me. There's like just inability to like fathom.
I don't have the inability to fathom.
On their own, to have control over themselves, their autonomy in a situation where they feel like they're losing control. You're not going to get that from consulting an Uber driver.
I don't know, but you could Uber into your parents' house and then hang out with your mom. Maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know if
why can't he get an Uber?
Maybe his parents don't live in the area. I don't know. It could be the case. Another reason, this is using extra information, but I'm pretty sure he's got his surgery coming up in a week or two. So that might be why he can't go to the gym, or he can't have an Uber, or he can't see friends or his parents. Because if he gets
so he can't get an Uber, but he can go to the gym if he wants. He can go and see his friends, his parents.
Wait, no. He said he can't do. He said he
barbecue.
No, he said he can't do any of that. That was part of his complaint in the video. I can't see my friends. I can't see my parents. I can't go to the gym.
If she takes the car.
I don't know if he was saying that about her taking the car, if he was saying he can't do that at all.
No, he was saying that about the car. He wasn't saying that about his condition, because he wants steaks. So clearly he's fine. If he wants steaks, if he wants wood pellets, if he wants to barbecue, I don't have much sympathy for that position either.
I don't know what you think barbecuing has to do with this. I'm talking about during the COVID epidemic. He's saying that he can't go out and do things, and he's got a surgery, like a chest surgery, in a week or whatever. Right?
He's saying in the transcript that he can't go out. He says you're not taking the car because he can't then go and do the things that he may want to do, such as going to the gym, seeing his parents. That her taking the car makes him is contributing to him feeling boxed in.
I guess we can rewatch this if you want. Hold on. I'm curious. Do you know which part of the video that was?
It's very near the beginning, like in the first minute, I'd say.
Give me 1 second just to like get this clip. Hold on. All right, I just want to see what he says here.
No, you just boundary and abusive and cruel. You were not taking the car because if you refuse to do wifey things, then I will go pick up the groceries. There's no groceries. I have steaks, wood pellets, my grill. I know it's not unreasonable, but I'll go do it. How about you first? Joey, how do you respect men? Yes, other than man. Other than man. I don't see love with that. No, other than man. So you're not taking the car.
Steven,
You're not taking the car.
Steven,
You are not.
then I will ask them to do that. Would you like me to ask?
Well, that's right.
Is that what you got, Steven?
Get an Uber.
Okay, Steven, I can't.
Feeling some constraints?
Steven,
Like, I can't
Steven.
go. Listen to me. You want to walk out right now? Listen to me. I can't go to the gym. I can't go to my parents. I can't call my friends. I can't be home. You're going to take the car and leave me here. Hillary, just think of how boxing has made me.
What do you need me to pick up? I'll get.
Okay, I think he might be talking about the car here. That might be the case, son.
Yeah, he is.
Man, I see love.
And
Okay, well, where are we at? Why can't he call his friends then? I don't know why he says that. Maybe it means he can't call his friends to go somewhere. I'm not sure.
I don't think he has many friends.
Okay. I thought you just said you didn't know who he was. How do you have all this information about him now?
Because I'm a video essayist, so I do research. That's literally all I do all day.
And you've researched and you know that he doesn't have any friends? You understand that, like, I can't tell you understand that.
It was a joke.
Okay, you say it's a joke, but you come off as like an actual man-hater, right? I don't know if you realize that or not. Because you've like repeatedly called for like empathy, but you have no problem like just saying like there's all this crazy stuff about it without even knowing, right?
I literally get cancelled because I say that incels aren't racist and that they are actually pretty okay guys. Like, I don't hate men at all. On the contrary, I just think that this is so unhealthy for just relationships to just see this like distrust in everything. I mean, this is not how you conduct yourself with people, let alone with women who it's just nonsensical to me.
I mean,
Position that you're sort of like dying on.
I'm not dying on anything. My position is perfectly reasonable. I'm saying we should probably just wait for more information before having like these huge judgments. But your brain can't compute not having a concrete answer on who is like the devil here and who is the angel. Like, here's a question. Do you think she's done anything wrong in this video at all? Or do you think she's conducted herself perfectly the whole time?
I wouldn't say perfectly, but far better than him. She's being conflict avoidant. She's trying to get out of the situation, and he isn't letting her.
Okay, so you think her
based on him
behavior
not
has
letting
been...
her,
Yeah, so you think her
I think it's
behavior...
acceptable.
You wouldn't criticize any of her behavior in the video?
No, I wouldn't. No.
Okay. Well, was there anything else you want to chat about in relation to this, or any other topics you want to go over?
I mean, I'm fine. If you'd like to, I mean, this is your stream. I'm just a guest here, so
we can talk for as long as you want, but I don't have to drag you if you have anything else you want to go over or whatever. You keep going back to this thing where it's like, this isn't healthy relationship for behavior, and I agree with you 100%. But again, like, this behavior is like deteriorating. Like, the behavior is like already, or the relationship is deteriorating. The relationship is already probably pretty. They're like on the verge of divorce when she's like about to give birth, right? That'd be my guess.
if it's so, why won't you let the person who you clearly hate and don't love leave when she wants to leave? Surely that's beneficial, not just to her, but especially to you.
Probably, unless he wants his car to go out and do things. I don't know why they have only one car. That's really weird. Unless one is in the shop or they just never bought a second one. That's kind of weird, but...
Yeah. I mean, I don't. Yeah. I'm not going to speculate on that because I may go down another man-hating route. So maybe I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Also, to be clear, she is allowed to leave. He just said that she should Uber, right?
Get an Uber.
When he why didn't she
ask.
why didn't she suggest any friends that could come pick her up?
Well, I think probably because I think this is a ring.com footage, right? This is security footage. I'm sure they both know their friends, so it's not something that they need to like talk about. They're not like sort of clarifying for like, you know, this video to be exposed to the world. I mean, I think that there's a lot that is known to them that isn't said because, I mean, they've been together for 9 years, so it makes sense. So, yeah.
Wait, what I'm saying is like, why? Hold on, no. What I'm saying is that like when so she says, I'm gonna call a friend or whatever, or who would you like me to call? And then he says, is that a threat? Get an Uber. Why doesn't she just say after that, like, okay, well, I'm gonna call John to come pick me up if she really wants to leave that badly, or I'm gonna call Samantha to come pick me up, or I'm gonna call my mom to come pick me up.
Because she says, who would you like me to ask? And then he asks her a question.
Mm-hmm.
What, is that a threat? And then she answers that. So I don't think that
he says, is that a threat? And then I think he says, like, get an Uber. Or he says, no, that's not a threat, Steven. It's like, get an Uber. Why doesn't she say, I'm going to call my mom to come pick me up?
Because she's answering his question.
Is she like, is it like a computer program? Does she only have a certain amount? Why doesn't she say afterwards, like, okay, well, I'm going to call my mom to come pick me up? If she's
then
like,
why didn't he answer her question? I mean, she asked him a question. He didn't answer it directly.
Because it sounds like he's being an asshole over something that's come up. But if she's literally just like trying to get away, why not just say like, okay, well, I'm just calling my mom and she's going to come pick me up?
I mean, I don't know. I cannot speculate on that.
Like,
But just
why
based on
didn't
what he
she
said.
initially just say like, okay, well, I'm going to call my mom to pick me up? Why did she say, who would you like me to call? Why would she even ask him that question?
Who would you like me to ask? Well, personally, I interpret that as it being a thing of control, probably in their dynamic. That he needs to know where she is at all times. That he has control over who she can ask and things like that. In case she asks a man, who knows? But yeah, it sounds like she's asking him for permission. Who would you like me to ask? As opposed to it being a threat. I feel that she is actually genuinely asking him.
Then why doesn't he just answer? Why doesn't he say, okay, well, I would like you to take this person? If he's controlling, why does he say, okay, well, I'm going to call this guy to come pick you up then so that I can keep track of you?
Well, maybe because he knows that these people, that who she's going to ask, probably these people are on her side with regards to the breakdown of their marriage. And so he may perceive it as a threat just based on his general hostility and
Wait, I don't understand
paranoia.
why he would perceive it as a threat if she has to ask him for permission because that's how he controls her. That doesn't even make sense.
Because then, like you said, like her talking behind his back to these people, being able to talk about sort of his behavior and everything and turn them against him. I mean, it's quite well known that he's a very paranoid person. It doesn't seem from his perspective, it doesn't seem unreasonable to see this as a threat, as opposed to his submissive wife asking who she can actually ask to pick her up.
Wait, so then in some ways so are you saying it kind of was a threat then? Or?
No, I'm not saying it was a threat, but I'm saying that he could perceive it. And I would say that he does perceive it as a threat because of his general paranoia about everybody, including his wife, ex-wife.
Okay. That's possible. But I feel like that's a farther assumption than, I feel like my assumption was more reasonable there and goes by like all the text given in the video. I don't know if you're...
No, definitely not.
Okay, I would 100%. I'm almost positive my assumption is correct. Steven Crowder, if you're listening, send me the rest of the footage or something. It sounds like, and I'll reiterate what I think probably has happened is, my guess is going to be that these two have probably fought a lot before. When they fight, she probably calls a friend who comes and picks her up. She's probably talked to that friend who probably now doesn't like Steven Crowder, because anytime a friend comes in to remove somebody from an abusive situation or relationship, that friend is going to hate their friend's partner. That's pretty normal, right? And my guess is she's probably called a friend or a couple friends that have picked her up, and now Steven Crowder knows that friend fucking hates him, so that when she's like, well, I'm gonna call this friend to pick me up, she might even weaponize it. She might not, and he just perceives it as like a threat, or you're gonna try to talk shit about me to somebody else. That's what it sounded like that exchange was. 100, well, I'll say 95%. Way more than like, who would you like me to call? I understand it's important for you to control me, and we're gonna go by the list of people. I think that's a way farther stretch than mine, which I think is probably what's happening. But I think I'm just giving my interpretation because we obviously disagree there. But
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I hope Steven does talk to you, because I think you're the only hope that he's got at this point. So,
I don't think so, because I'm an ardent Steven Crowder hater. But you guys have all turned me into apparently his number one simp because you guys want to make insane assumptions about a 3-minute video clip. But
Which is perfectly valid and perfectly reasonable to make assumptions about that clip. So yeah, I stand by my position on that, I'm afraid.
okay. You don't have to be afraid. It's all good. It's the beauty of... Oh, never mind, actually. I was going to say that's the beauty of the United States, but you're in Bongerland, so I don't know how much you guys can disagree with each other. All right, well, any other parts of this conversation or anything you want to bring up?
No, I think I've said everything that I wanted to say about this. Yeah, I think we hashed it out. I'm not sure if we got to any...
Well, at least we got our positions staked out more. But hey, listen, I appreciate it. Listen, can I give you a big congratulations for finally figuring out Discord and not having to go through all sorts of insane hoops. Have you, what are you using to stream now?
I still use Ecamm Live. That's why I'm not streaming, because I knew that I would go through hoops.
Okay, this would have been,
Sean.
if you want to see an abusive interaction, this would have turned into one if I would have had to deal with the same shit that Max had to, setting your shit up. Can you tell me, I'm just curious, why don't you use OBS? Why do you use Ecamm?
I've tried to use, this is my fault. I can't get it to work. I have it installed. I have the option, but it doesn't connect to my YouTube channel. I know that it's me. I'm not blaming OBS at all. I know that it's my own technical inefficiency and ineffectiveness. So yeah, it's me.
Okay. If you ever want, I know, because I work with a ton of software and I stream to YouTube or whatever. If you ever want to take like 5 or 10 minutes, I can help you figure out like how to configure it. Like it's pretty simple, and it would probably save you a ton of headache doing like the Ecamm shit.
Oh, please.
Yeah.
That would be excellent. Thank you very much.
Right, if you want to, we can do it right now if you want to check real fast, or you can do it later at some other time if you want. But I'm pretty sure it's literally like a 5-minute thing to figure your thing out if you want.
Yeah. Happy to. Yes. Thank you so much. You have no idea.
Yeah, no problem. Good luck. Hopefully it works next time. We don't want you to struggle to set it up, but I believe in you. Okay?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
All right.
And,
Well, if you see anything else I say that you think is stupid or retarded, feel free to DM me and we can be passive aggressive until we talk to each other and fight it out. Yeah.
Excellent. I will do. Right. Thank
All
you.
right. Yeah, have a
Bye.
good one. I'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.
Mac, never again. Oh my god, Mac. Oh god. Oh my goodness.